I just want to quickly talk about a topic that has been in our little world for the last few weeks so much discussion and so many back and forth, which is about JavaScript and how to start being a JavaScript developer and how actually JavaScript is changing our lives right now and what to do with it. Now, first of all, I'm Chris Heilmann, I'm Code Poet on Twitter. I've been breathing and living JavaScript for the last 18 years. Well, not really, it's not that old, but I've been a web developer for 20 years, but I've been there from the very beginning using JavaScript in very terrible ways, and then later on using libraries in very terrible ways, and then writing books about JavaScript, blogging about JavaScript, interviewing people about JavaScript. And right now I work on the JavaScript engine in Microsoft, and on the Visual Studio code editor that allows us to write JavaScript and debug JavaScript in browsers. It's a very important topic, but it's also a very confusing topic. JavaScript has a lot of love right now. Everybody talks about JavaScript as the solution to everything, and we need JavaScript for everything to build something sensible and useful. And there's good reasons for that. JavaScript has been quite a revolution and quite a very flexible way to build amazing things for the web. It's a very flexible language. Some people say it's too flexible for its own good, but I like as a developer that I can turn a string into a number, into an elephant, into a boat, or whatever comes out there at the end. And that not every single small thing has to be defined before I write it. The good thing that I like about JavaScript is something that a lot of people hate it compared to HTML and CSS, and that it's not forgiving. If you do something wrong in JavaScript, it straightforward tells you that you did something wrong and the thing is broken. It's the same with PHP. Again, a not well-architected language, but it jump-started the web that we know right now, and when you made a mistake, nothing rendered. Whereas it didn't forgiving, it didn't try to render something for you. I don't like that as a developer. I like my punishment. It runs everywhere. It runs in every browser that you can think of. It runs in every embedded system that we can think of. We've got Tesla, we've got little robots, we've got IoT devices, we've got JavaScript on everything by now because we have engines that run JavaScript that can be embedded into other systems. Things, for example, like Slack is running with JavaScript and the browser on your machine and installed as a native application everywhere. It's automatically available in browsers. And that is one thing that has been discussed to death lately. Is it available? Is it problematic? Yes, it is. The nature that JavaScript can be faulty, that JavaScript cannot work, means that we as developers have to put extra effort in writing good defensive, almost paranoid code to do good things on the web. But we should not think that people turn off JavaScript. That's only freaks or researchers. So turning off JavaScript is not easy to do nowadays. Breaking JavaScript with a bad connection, with a misaligned CDN, with a bad process is totally possible. But turning off JavaScript is not a use case to me. It's actually an edge case that doesn't make much sense to care about. We've got multiple open source engines available. V8 is of course the big one, with Node being based on V8. The Chakra core engine is now open source as well. Mozilla's SpiderMonkey has been open for quite a while as well. And it has a huge community. Everybody touches JavaScript in one way or another. It's the village bicycle of the web. Everybody has to use it sooner or later and thinks that they can actually build something amazing with it. It's a lightweight development environment, and text editor and the browser is enough to start with JavaScript. And this is where it gets crazy when I have designers that want to start with JavaScript. The first thing we explain to them, well, go to your command line, install these 500 npm packages, don't worry about those 6,000 warning messages, they're totally fine, and you probably will do something. And by the way, you need a MacBook Pro before you write JavaScript. That's not what JavaScript was about. But lately, JavaScript has a lot of visibility, which leads to an obsession about it. Like, you put it on your CV nowadays, and people are like, whoa, cool, you get job offers. I put it on the CV in 1997, people are like, what, you don't know a real programming language? You know, like C++ or Java or COBOL or Fortran or whatever people used back then. And everything has to be JavaScript, and everything has to be a package, everything has to be installed, everything has to have a dependency or another dependency or another dependency. And that leads to a lot of pressure and anxiety to developers. I feel stupid looking around the web and seeing some of these instructions where it's like, you use this with that and that. And I'm like, I don't know any of these things. So now I need 2 weeks to research those before I actually write my first line of code or what's going on here. And tell me if this sounds familiar to you as well. I feel like I'm out of the loop. There's new stuff coming all the time and I cannot keep up at the moment. By the time I get to play with a new JavaScript feature, people already blog about it as considered harmful. Everybody talks about Flügelhorn.js or whatever, but I have no idea what I need it for. Am I building things that nobody else does? Am I the boring person that builds like websites where real people use them instead of things that I could win hacker use with? What are all the NPM modules on my hard drive? Why is there 215 meg of random JavaScript on my hard drive? I have no idea what's going on there. And why is this getting bigger all the time? Why do I get all these warnings when I build something, and how come this is not a problem? As a developer, when I get a warning, I'm like, wait, what? Should I fix it? I have no idea what it is, so probably it's fine, you know? Like, this is what leads to like IoT devices doing DDoS attacks, when we say like, it's fine, don't worry about it, don't look under the hood, that's fine. So calm down. It's not that problematic. If you think about getting into JavaScript right now, or if you're already a JavaScript developer, don't get bogged down in this like maelstrom of like, oh my God, you gotta know everything new and everything has to be done. It's not that hard. JavaScript used to be easy. It was just one language in the web stack. It was HTML structure, CSS look and feel, and JavaScript was the behavior. Then we started mixing and matching that much, much more. CSS is a lot of behavior nowadays with animations, with like media queries and all these things. JavaScript is starting to write out HTML. All of these things have been bundled together and jumbled all over each other, so it changed a lot. Due to its flexible nature, we use JavaScript for everything right now. And that is cool. It's the only part of those 3 bits that can create the other 2. You cannot create behavior with HTML, only to a degree. A select box will be a select box, so you don't control it. But with JavaScript, I can create styling. With JavaScript, I can create HTML and content as well. So JavaScript now is a lot more than just web development and these 3 levels of it. It's like task runners, package management, extension of software, browsers, editors, compilation target, embeddable runtime, and so on and so forth. Probably when you got a sick dog, you can heal it with JavaScript as well. There is a package somewhere. And different uses of JavaScript require different skill levels. So you don't have to feel bad about not knowing all of it. It starts with using libraries. jQuery developers that basically want to put something on the web that is cool and clickable and does something, whoa, when you click on it. Fine. This is using libraries. This is not knowing JavaScript. I had people that applied for, when I worked in Mozilla, that applied for Firefox developer only knowing JavaScript, jQuery. You're like, did you think the browser was written in jQuery? Because it wasn't. It's not that slow. But it's something that we did. We just use JavaScript and we don't know what we're doing. But we learn APIs. We learn a different way of programming. jQuery was different to JavaScript. It was much more related to CSS, and that's why it was such a success. And that's why it's so good for a lot of people to use it as well. We can enhance HTML progressively. This is when you have to start to understand where JavaScript can fail, what JavaScript does to the HTML document. We can use APIs and services. These are REST APIs, these are microservices. These are all kind of like data services just to get JSON back and use a bit of JavaScript to filter out the things that you want to show. We can then use Node, Gulp, Grunt, NPM, and others to manage your tasks and builds. You make JavaScript part of your development flow and not only build something with JavaScript. You use it on your machine, on your server to create something from it. You can write code for Node, other systems and services to write apps, and this is where the full stack development comes in, where you get the whole back-end and front-end in the same language, and hopefully you have 84 hours in your day, because if you want to cover all of that, good luck with that. And you actively participate in systems used earlier in the timeline, so you become part of the Node community. You submit things to the Node core itself. You submit things to now Yarn, for example, or you talk to the JavaScript engine developers and help them with their rendering and their test cases and their use cases. You can participate in extending editors and development environments, like Atom, like Visual Studio Code, like Sublime Text. All of these things are extensible. All of these things can be made better. Development tools in the browsers, debugging tools, have extensions, so you can extend them as well. And then you can also work on meta languages like TypeScript, CoffeeScript, Source, whatever other meta language was there. And ideas to bridge the gap between JS and higher languages. So this is where something like WebAssembly comes in as well, or Scripten, that you turn C++ bytecode into JavaScript to run a 3D engine in your browser. And then, of course, on the highest level, on being in the JavaScript community, you actively participate in inventing the next version of the language. This is when you become part of the TC39 and you give up on joy in your life and you basically like meetings. But these are the levels. These are all the levels that you can have in there. And you know what? You do not need to do all of that. You can pick and choose the thing that you're best at, and you can have the best impact for our end users, because this is our job, making the web good for people out there, so they can contribute to the web and do something different than just posting GIFs of Trump and things like that, but actually become real contributors and real developers of the web, or not developers, but creators of the web, because the web has always been a read-write medium. We should make it easy for people to contribute to the web. You do not need to use all of that. You don't need to use gulp, grunt, broccoli, bobfert, whatever they call it nowadays. You can use the thing that you once understood, and that's fine. That's okay. Learn that one and become an expert in that. Don't jump on every new thing because it's good for your CV. It's totally okay to pick and choose what you want and feel comfortable with. It's the arrogance of our competition about like, oh, you're not a real developer if you don't use that. That's bullshit. I just wrote a blog post called CrossFit.js. I got the same thing in the CrossFit community. CrossFit was great because it made workout easy. Just carry heavy stuff and run around. This is what CrossFit was defined as. And now it's like, oh, you need this kind of outfit, you need that kind of food, you need to sort this out and that, you don't have the right shoes, you can't do CrossFit. Horseshit. Just basically make it as easy as possible and use what makes good results in the end. JavaScript is not a language, but it's a whole world of decisions and use cases by now. Because of its flexibility, we use it for everything. So it's time for you to understand that you never can be the whole world. Nobody can. The inventors of JavaScript don't know that. That's great. Now we got nothing, I got screaming. Find your place in this world, travel to other destinations, but don't feel bad for becoming a resident in all of them, for not becoming a resident in all of them. The people who invented JavaScript don't understand all the things we do with them. The people who maintain JavaScript engines get stuck behind. The NPM people get stuck behind. Everybody does. We just don't show it, and that's why we look better or cool about it. So there's a lot of things you got to balance, and you got to balance them for yourself. I can't help you with this, and you shouldn't get frustrated when other people tell you, "Ooh, you got to do this." The ownership and responsibility balancing act is one of the most important ones. Understand what you use and own it. Don't just magically follow things and say like, oh, this works, so I'm an expert now because I used this package by somebody who doesn't maintain it, I don't know what's going on. And of course you want to make yourself more effective. You don't want to write from scratch every single time the new thing that you want to do. So find the packages to use, find the tools to use, find the way to set up your editor, but don't make yourself fully dependent on it. The responsibility of your code lies with you in the end. And the more abstractions you use in your code, the more responsibility is taken away from it. So make sure that you know what you're doing. The build tools and process balancing act is use what helps you to write maintainable code, or use what enables others to work with you. So when you like spaces versus tabs, for example, if you like tabs, you're wrong, but that's okay. If you like more than 2 spaces, you might be wrong as well, but that's okay as well. But then you get into a larger project, you end up in a distributed team, and out of a sudden these things become more and more important. And this is when they become important. Not as a like, oh, always write JavaScript that way. It's only important when you have to work with other people. And when you enable others to work with your code. So I'm getting the anxiety of not wanting to publish things right now on GitHub because I don't create the 6,000 JSHR files and build files and everything around it. I just, I write it and find somebody else to do it for me. This is when you partner. Oh well, so much for that. Progressive Enhancement Balancing Act. Rely on the browser to give a working experience, whatever that means, or control the UX with JavaScript and own the failure cases. I think the working thing is what we always talk about when it comes to progressive enhancement. Ooh, input type number, great. End users now get a different keyboard on their mobile phone. But most mobile phones don't give them a comma, or they don't give them a full stop, or they don't give them a minus, so you can't even enter a number. So you will have to enhance it with JavaScript somehow. Then people say, I don't use input type number because it's broken, I do everything with JavaScript. Okay, you can do that, but then you own the failure cases. In all of our code that we write, the failure case should be much more important than the winning case, because this is when it shows that you cared about your code and that you thought it through. Supporting the Bast balancing act. Don't block out older users and environments or use powerful language additions. Cool new things that are in JavaScript right now. Promises. Get your head around promises. Every new browser API that will come out will be promises based. But you cannot do it in IE6. You know what? It's dead. Don't care. Don't give it JavaScript. Give it HTML and CSS. It can deal with that. Everything else you just get sick of, and it's sick enough as it is. I can't help you with all these decisions. It's up to you to make the products you work on what makes sense and what doesn't. It is your environment, and you have no right to tell people off for using a different environment or saying this is the one true way of doing it. It all comes out when you work together. The most important thing when it comes to build processes, syntax, ways of programming is when you're more than one person. And unless it's that, stop writing these blog posts that this is the one true way of doing it. Because most of the people who do that haven't worked in large corporations or large companies or even teams where it really mattered. So there's a few pointers I can give you though. Learn the language. Learn how it works, its strengths and weaknesses. Learn the language itself, not abstractions on top of it, not horror stories what bad browsers were in the 1990s. Understand the way a loop works, how a condition works. Understand why JavaScript is slow at times and what you do to the rendering if you do everything on the single thread that JavaScript is. Use polyfills and libraries when you know what they do. Make sure you can remove them and upgrade them if needed. Don't put more stuff on the web, there's enough out there already. ES6 is the current ratified version of JavaScript. If you start as a new JavaScript developer right now, and it doesn't say ES6 on the tutorial, don't follow it. It's probably some old outdated code that tells you some cool stuff from 10 years ago. ES6 has some amazingly clever things in it that can be used and make sense for you. Promises are an important part of every new JavaScript API, good to get your head around them. And don't panic, it's a buffet, it's not a main meal. You pick and choose what you want to have, you eat as much as you can, don't get sick from eating the wrong things, don't get sick from eating too many things, and don't shove things from the buffet down vegetarians' throats because you think they should eat sausage. This is not how JavaScript works. Thanks.